Hi everybody, it's Chris Kandaya here. I'm on the island of Guernsey and we're beholding a beautiful sunset. And I'm here with the Reverend Adrian Data. He's a clinical psychologist and a local vicar. And one of the things I learnt today that I hadn't really appreciated was how many of the island of Guernsey's children during the Second World War were evacuated so they wouldn't be part of the occupation when the Nazis came. And it made me think, what were the kind of psychological implications of that mass movement? Because this year is the 80th anniversary of the liberation of Guernsey after the war. And I thought, I wonder if we can learn anything about the Ukrainian diaspora and what some of those families might be facing when they go back to Ukraine. So, Adrian, big question. You've been working with lots of folk here on the island who had that experience of moving away and then coming back. What do you think we might be able to learn for our Ukrainian friends?
I think one of the things that's very real is that it's a major disruption, not just to as you as a person, but to you as a community. And listening to people's stories, it's amazing. So some people, when they'd gone away, had found places that were real places of refuge and real places where they formed lasting relationships and they stayed in contact with their people all the days of their life. And there were some other stories where the fit wasn't just so good, and sometimes it was, I guess you might even say, abusive. And so everybody's story is different. And so I think one of the most important things is that although there are some general principles that we might be able to find, we have to think every single Ukrainian refugee, their story is different. I think it can depend upon the age at which you go away. It can depend upon your own internal security when you go away, your character, your personality, your intellect, and so on. So I think it differs for everyone. But I think one of the things I would say is sometimes we want to have a sort of Pollyanna-esque approach to life and think that everything's going to be all right. But I think these are very real traumas. Being taken away from your family sometimes one of your parents might be with you, being taken away from your country, and just not knowing. Because I think one of the things that happened here, people thought they were going to return within a few months, and they were away for 5 years, which is
very similar.
Uncanny resemblance, isn't it?
Yes. And I guess if there are Ukrainian refugee families that are watching this, or maybe hosts that are still in touch with their Ukrainian families that they're looking after, is there anything we could say as advice that will make some of that transition more possible, less traumatic, less challenging? Is there anything we could be doing now while we're still in the middle of that diaspora?
I think it's interesting. One of the things that seems to be really important is about coherence. And so we're in an amazing age now, aren't we, like with video and cameras. So I think being able to keep a story together of someone's life is really important. So often you'll find that social workers and other therapists with children who've had traumatic histories will try and put together a life story.
Yes.
And so I think you can do that in real time. And so not just about having the photographs taken, but maybe put them with a narrative that this is when we went down to Brighton and we had time by the seaside. This is when we went to the zoo, or this is when we went to the museum.
Yes.
And to put in nice details. So, this is when you had your ice cream and your favourite flavour was, strawberry. So something about that thing that people sometimes then will look at those photographs and from that construct a narrative about their early life. And for some of the children, they're too early to remember. So it's actually really doing them a favour of giving them that coherence.
That's really helpful. I've seen the impact of life story work for our foster children. And, we're reconnecting with a lad that was with us 12 years ago, but we gave him a book of photographs with some of that narrative, and it did help. So I think that's really powerful. I think some of the folks that you speak to here have found it very difficult to talk about that time away. It was almost taboo to kind of talk about it. Is talking about it helpful? Is it something? Is it best, forgotten and left in a box, or is it useful to kind of process it and talk about it now?
I think, again, I always kind of go back to this point that everybody's different.
Sure.
And so I think some people will want to talk about something a lot, some people won't, and I think to be able to be sensitive to what each person's need or desire is really, really important. But I think one of the things one shouldn't do is have it as a taboo, that we don't talk about that and lock it away.
Yeah.
And equally, that feel like we have to talk about it. But I think one of the things that probably is helpful is to remember where people have come from. So to talk about their previous identity, their family, and sometimes to be able to give people emotions or affect that go with things. Because often what children are learning is actually feelings can sometimes be really mixed. So you could be really, really happy that you're placed in a safe place and you can go to school and you've made new friends, but you're really sad that you can't see your grandparents anymore, or you can't see your dog, or whatever it is. And so I think to be able to give people, children, the permission and the ability to be able to express mixed feelings is really important. And I think to be able to have those conversations.
That's really good. One last question. I guess the children that went away and kind of didn't experience the Nazi occupation, their experience of the war was very different for those that were on the island and had to live through that. I'm guessing that's similar for our Ukrainian friends who've come to the UK or other countries and haven't had to cope with drone attacks every night versus their fathers or their brothers and sisters who are in Ukraine. That reintegration with people that have had a very different experience. Any advice about what to expect from that?
I think it feels like one of those subjects where you go where angels fear to tread, because but I think one thing that is important is that, again, that you go slow and that you reconnect. But I think one of the amazing thing about children, you'll have seen this, that when children are playing, some children sometimes don't even know each other.
Yes.
And then, within an hour, they seem like they're best of friends and they look like they're proper siblings or a proper friendship group. So I think, one of the things we spoke about earlier, Krish, was a friend of yours who's really passionate about play. And play is never really just about play. Play is about being able to work through unconscious conflicts and unresolved unconscious experiences. And so I think being able to maybe have opportunity where people can engage in free play in lots of different ways in creativity is one way that can happen, and to give them space, and again not to be too prescriptive. I think to be able to give the equipment and the ability, but it's really about time and space. And I think one last thing I would say is that when people have experienced these things which are very real and both psychologically and physically very intruding, that yes, we can have some degree of resilience, and out of that people sometimes come and rise and become even stronger. But they are things that shape us and change us. But without being too blasé, these are things, sadly, that when you look at human history, just the fact that we have had this here somewhere that seems beautiful, but people's lives have been shaped, but they rebuild and they're like the phoenix and they come from the ashes. It will happen. But people have those scars.
Yes. That's so helpful. And I wasn't expecting to discover this here in the beautiful island of Guernsey, that there was so much trauma. There were so many children that were separated from their families, so many people that had to live through the occupation here. But as you say, Adrian, people were able to rebuild their lives. That gives us great hope, however long the conflict goes on, however uncertain our times are. So take courage, friends, and thank you for all that you're doing around the UK and around the world to support Ukrainian refugees and help people deal with the trauma they're experiencing. So have a great rest of your day. Thanks for spending some time with us.
Thank you.